Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bees Buzz. This is episode 3, and today we will go over the last 2 games played. The opening against the Flyers and the second game against the Red Wings in Detroit. I will be back with my co-host, G. Hikes, in a moment.
Thanks, Steve, and it was a nice debut for the Bruins. Nice way to start off the season, 2-1 victory against the Philadelphia Flyers on opening night at the TD Garden. Chris Kelly was the big hero, returning to the lineup triumphantly with scoring the game-winning goal. Kelly fired home a loose puck from the slot after defenseman Adam McQuaid's broken, or should I say shattered stick shot out high. It was stopped by Flyer goalie Steve Mason's blocker, but then it plopped over him, and Kelly was there for the rebound and put it in. McQuaid, was nice to see him back on the ice again, too. He had health issues last year, and he led the Bruins in ice time with 21-47 against the Flyers. And also, too, Bruins goaltender Tuukka Rask, he stopped 19 shots. Steve Mason finished with 31 saves, but he couldn't keep the puck out of the net with the game on the line. In all due respect, he received very little support from the Flyers. I mean, the Bruins outshot the Flyers 33-20.
No defenseman.
No defenseman. The Flyers were 0 for 3 on the power play with 4 shots on net. The Flyers, they failed to score through 2 periods. The Flyers tied the game at 1-1 at 4:19 of the third period when right winger Jakub Voracek circled the Boston net, and he spun a shot towards the front, and the puck deflected off Bruins center Carl Soderberg and then hit Flyers center Sean Courtier before getting past Rask to his stick side. And the Bruins, they swept the Flyers last season. They won their last 4 home games against the Flyers, and they're also 13-3-1 in its past 16 against Philadelphia overall. In the first period, the Bruins, they capitalized on their first power play of the season, 55 seconds after defenseman Torrey Krug. He was battling forward Zach Rinaldo into a roughing penalty in the Boston zone after the play had moved up ice. And then Soderberg, he carried the puck out of the right corner. Him and Bergeron were both in there digging for the puck, and he dished it out to Riley Smith, who was moving in beside the left hash mark, and Smith's one-timer, he was all alone, and he beat Mason at 10:39 for a 1-0 lead. Smith and Soderberg, they're pretty good with running that what's called the backdoor play. They did that quite a bit last season, and it's nice to see that success carry over.
And Smith was wide open on that play, which was great.
Yeah, it certainly was, and what a night by Soderberg too. I mean, he got assists on both of the goals, and it's funny how he got the assists on both the goals. There was one shot that he ended up kind of deflecting in that just went a little past Tuukka Rask, and the Bruins were able to knock that out. And then the goal deflected off of Soderberg, the only goal that went in. But he made up for it overall. He played pretty gritty, and he was there when you needed him. That's for sure.
He's their leading scorer after that game with 2 points.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Bergie and all those penalty in minutes. Plus, he had a couple of hits. He's doing okay.
Yeah, exactly. Stevie? What are some of the positives that you took out of that game?
Well, number one was the way they came out of the gate. Of course, it's opening night, home crowd, and you're going to come out screaming, and I liked that. But even Julian showed some, different characteristics in his coaching, the way he let them play more offensively and charge the net. Defensemen were moving up, pinching in. And the power play goals, the goaltending of Rask was sharp. I mean, for opening night, all around, a great performance. Bergie was great. He really impressed. The rookies all looked pretty good. I know you want to talk about Cunningham and Robbins later, which we will, but very impressed. Very, very, very good opening game. I would have liked to see maybe a couple of more goals and, not blow that 1-goal lead like they did. But, they can work that out. First game.
Yeah, and may I also know too that the penalty kill was also 3 for 3,
right.
And they did score a power play goal, and also too you were talking about Patrice Bergeron having an outstanding game. He also did a great job shadowing Claude Giroux.
Right.
I mean, he was on him all night, and I think he only ended up getting 1 shot on net, which is big because he's their biggest threat to score goals, and if you can take him out of the game, if especially to it being a close game, that makes the biggest difference in the world.
Well, like I told you in the last show, we were talking how Giroux was their number 1 threat, and they shut him down. Spooner helped out also, and like you say, Bergie was all over him, beat him on the face-offs, and all in all, it was a great effort.
Yeah, and another thing too was that the new Bruins 4th line, or I don't know whether they're going to keep on calling it the revitalized Merlot line, but anyways, Craig Cunningham, Daniel Paille, and Bobby Robbins,
right.
Bruin 32-year-old rookie on their roster, kind of a tough guy. He's going to take the place. Looks like he's going to end up taking the place of Sean Thornton. But anyways, this
they'll
guy,
forget about Thornton by
exactly.
January.
Yeah, this guy, he's been in 4 different organizations, and he's never quite made it to the big time until now. But I'll tell you what, I mean, those guys all played very well.
Yep.
The 3 of them counted for 10 of the Bruins' 23 hits in the contest.
Exactly.
And Robbins had a game high 5, and he was actually, like I said, he was on the ice for the game's only fight. Him and Cunningham kind of gave Ronaldo a Bruin sandwich by crunching him, and then the next thing you see right in front of the Flyer bench, it's Robbins going with Shen, and he's a tough customer, but they went at it, and Robbins ended up getting the best of Shen in the long run. He finally ended up knocking him down onto the ice.
Yep, he introduced himself to the Bruins fans the right way.
He certainly did, so that was quite a spark.
Between him and Cunningham, they had 9 hits, 5 by Robbins, I think, and 4 by Cunningham.
Right.
According to the Bruins website.
Yeah, and Paille actually had a nice rush at the beginning of the game, and he started off the season the way that we ended it against Montreal. He hit the post. Or
right.
as I'm surprised, what's his name? Doc Emmerich was calling the game. I'm surprised that he didn't say, and it wouldn't go.
Oh. I put it on Facebook.
Calls.
I put it on Facebook right off the bat. I said he left off where he started off where he left off from last year, and so did Marchand with a couple of missed opportunities, but he'll work it out.
Yeah.
Do you want to go to the Detroit game, or you got anything left on Philly?
No, I think we're pretty much all set on Philly, but let's go to last night's game. All the Bruins scored first on a Patrice Bergeron goal. Most of the night, they looked like they were skating in the muck as the ice was tipped most of the way as the fresh Detroit Red Wings with Abdelkader and Nyquist scoring second-period goals. The Bruins started out not playing well, and then they just went completely flat after Patrice Bergeron. He got into a collision with Nicholas Cromwell, and he hit the boards helmet first on the first shift of the second period. So he went to the quiet room. He returned at about the 13-minute mark, took a slashing penalty, and then that's when the Wings got their game winner on the power play. The Bruins were 0 for 4 on the power play.
Horrible power play last night.
Yeah, they only had 17 shots on net, and they didn't get their first shot on net until 12:01 into the first period. So you're not going to win many games doing that. The Bruins seemed to come to a little bit of life at 17:26 of the third period when Franzen took an elbowing penalty, and then Julian, he called the timeout and he pulled Tuukka, and it almost paid off as Marchand rang a shot off the post. And then Howard, he finally had to earn his money by making a few good stops at the end, but unfortunately it was too little, too late.
Right, and it's my first complaint, as you know, is. But it's no excuse to back-to-back games, and this just showed you, Julian saying we can't use it as an excuse, but it's just obvious. It's tough to play back-to-back. You went into Detroit after your own emotional home opener and then you come back with the travel, and Detroit wanted the revenge for the playoffs. So, everything was kind of going against them on that. But they've got to get used to them because there's going to be a lot more.
Yeah,
and
coming up right in the middle of next week.
Right in the middle of next week. And like you say, they started out okay, but then the second period, they looked like they were done. And then the Berge penalty didn't help them. They also had that 4-on-3 or whatever it was, and they couldn't score, and that gave Detroit a little bit of zip.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that right there, that was actually, the tip of the iceberg right there. The Bruins really needed to score on that, and they didn't, and that was just such a big uplift for the Red Wings at that time. And then that's when they, turned around and changed the
game around.
They really did.
And it was, I don't know, a tough situation because right before that, Marchand the Bruins would have had a power play, but Marchand got the embellishment penalty, and it would have been a power play for the Bruins. Instead, it evened it off, and then Detroit got a penalty shortly after that, which gave the Bruins a 4-on-3. And like you say, it turned the game around when Detroit ended up coming down the ice at full strength and scoring. And I don't know, they do get a break in my eyes because it was back-to-back. So, they could have won that game. Or they would have got blown out if it wasn't for Rask goaltending. 17 shots by the Bruins, 24 by the Red Wings.
Right, and Tuukka turned around. He turned aside 22 of them, and he had to work pretty hard too. He made some real good stops. But yeah, let's face it. The only difference with the Wings is they didn't have Pavel Datsyuk. Other than that, if the Bruins played like they did Wednesday night with Tuukka still being pretty sharp, they wouldn't have had any problems with that game. They would have been able to win.
And their power play was just atrocious last night. Now, we were talking earlier about Lucic. He's got a -1 in 2 games, no shots, no points, 2 hits. I don't want to start hopping on him this early, but, with Krejci out, his job's to step it up, not to sit back down and cry because Krejci's out. Like you were mentioning, it's obvious there's a problem with Lucic.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, the whole thing is, too, if he's going to continue to play like this, then, I think that he obviously, he's not at 100% right now. And maybe that's physically, I'm not really sure. But, he's just hurting the team right now because he's basically just going out there and going through the motions. And I know on the way here, I was listening to one of the radio shows, and one of the sportscasters was talking about, if when David Krejci gets back, I think that you'll see him, kick it up and going back to being the old Luch. Well, I'd like to think that that's not the case.
Right.
And like you were saying, if Krejci's out, he needs to step it up.
Right.
He can't just, hang around and wait. I like I said, I hope and I don't think that that's the case.
No, and he's supposed to take lead of that team, and they're supposed to follow. And twice, once in the Flyer game and once in the Detroit game, the puck was shot out of the zone to him. Once in Flyer game, he was near center ice. He could have got that puck and maybe had a breakaway, but he bobbled it. In the Detroit game, he was just before their blue line, and the same thing happened. And it's like he's just out there and his mind's not. I don't know what is going on. But it's early, and like you say, it could be his injury, so hopefully he snaps out of it because I like the guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't snap out of it if there's a trade. It's too early to talk about that. But on the other hand, too, Marchand, he's not been disappointing, but again, he's snake bit. He just cannot score a goal. And again, the dumb hockey, the embellishment, it's unacceptable. I'm sorry. I just can't take the cheapness, that kind of hockey. That's not Bruins hockey.
Yeah, he's not playing for the Canadians.
Right.
All I can think of is PK Subban. How there's a difference between good and great.
Right.
And not comparing those guys. But if you look at PK, and the rest of those Canadians too, this diving and embellishment and stuff like that. It's not hockey.
No, and that's why they came up with the rule, mostly because of the Canadians. Other teams were doing it, obviously. A lot of teams do it. And, Lucic got called on a couple, at least one last year. I think it was in the playoffs.
Yes.
And it is ref's discretion, but it's like I say, that would have been a power play. Might have made a difference. Maybe not with the way the power play was last night. But these are the things that drive me crazy about Marshawn. Be a hockey player. All right? This is not tiddlywinks. This is not baseball. You're a hockey player. Act like it.
Right. Exactly. Another thing, too, is the player Dougie Hamilton. I mean, I know that he's still fairly young. He's 21, but he also is in his third season. And, he seemed to have a pretty good camp, and he played pretty well in the exhibition games. But
right.
I'll tell you what, the first 2 games, especially the first night, he made a lot of bad mistakes. Got burnt a few times when Detroit scored their only goal. Chara was trying to handle 2 guys, and he was really nowhere to be found.
No.
He seems to be very indecisive out there and making a lot of bad decisions.
He's forcing. He's not comfortable. He needs to get more comfortable out there, and I think he'll be okay.
Right. I don't know how much more comfortable he can get as far as
in
like
his third season.
His partner is also Zdeno Chara.
Chara, right? Exactly.
That's actually a pretty good thing to have, but. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see him turn it around, and I think because of that, if you noticed last night watching the game, he got less ice time out there because of the way he played.
And speaking of defensemen, Torrey Krug's been impressive.
Yes, he has.
And Riley Smith, obviously the 2 guys we needed to sign. They've all been, in the first 2 games, it's a plus. Me, I'm the critical guy, and there's a lot to be proud of these first 2 games. Let's talk about the upcoming schedule.
Yeah, what do we got here?
And we will see who we got. I know they're playing Detroit again this week.
I believe they have the Capitals. I think we had already gone over them on our last show.
Right.
They're playing the Capitals on Saturday. Then on Monday they're playing the Avalanche.
1 o'clock game.
That's a 1 o'clock game, and both of those games, Washington and Colorado, are home games. And then
on the road
in the middle of the week, they're on the road again. And what's that? Wednesday against the Red Wings at 8 p.m.
Another back-to-backer.
And then Thursday against the Montreal Canadiens at 7:30.
And the Canadiens in the second game of the back-to-backer.
Exactly.
This will be interesting.
Well, at least they don't have any huge distance to travel from one game one place to the other, and at least they do have one day off in between.
And they they play in Buffalo, which
Buffalo on Saturday.
Right. See, years ago, they used to play a road trip in October right off the bat. It would be like a 5-gamer.
Because and they usually end up going out to the West Coast because of the circus being into town.
And that used to be great for the team beginning of the season. It used to bond them.
Right.
But then again, we didn't win any cups those years.
Yeah, that's true.
It is nice that they've got this little road swing. And, they'll probably, where it's in Buffalo, they'll probably come back to Boston. Maybe they'll stay in Buffalo. I don't know how they'll travel that, but knowing Julian, he might keep them up in Buffalo between Montreal.
I would think that's what they'll probably do.
Yeah, and let them bond, and so they'll be on the road the 4 days, and that's good for them. Then they come back, and we'll get into that schedule. So the Avalanche, they lost 5-0 last night, and I guess they've got a couple of goalies played, and the reason I'm up on this is I read about the game a little bit. And their website said that the goalies had a good game. I don't know about you hockey fans, but my goalies lose. I've got 2 goalies on the ice, and the team loses 5-0. I'm not saying the goalies had a good game.
I don't think that's a good game.
No.
Unless he had 86 shots on net or
no, that wasn't the case.
What was it? Who was it that played the Bruins that time? It was a goalie for the Quebec Nordiques. I'm trying to remember his name, but anyways,
yes.
I think the Bruins fired.
Tugnut?
Yeah, Ron Tugnut. They fired 76 shots in on him. I remember that.
I think they lost that game.
Yeah, exactly. They either lost or it was a tie game, one of the two. I'm not sure how that worked, but that's if you give up 5 goals in a game like that, okay. But in today's hockey,
well, forget it.
With the percentage and stuff like that.
So I think they've got a good shot of beating them.
They've got a young team. Patrick Roy did a great job with them last year. He brought them from worst to Central Division champs in 1 year. He's very fiery, and they've got a lot of youth on their team.
Right.
Matt Duchene, Nathan McKinnon, those guys are fast, a lot of speed. Gabriel Landeskog, he's their team leader. He can be very aggressive, and he's got good scoring abilities. And the two-way play of Ryan O'Reilly. And all of these guys are very young, too. They're all under 24. The only guy they really lost of any note was they lost Paul Stastny to St. Louis. And one thing about Stastny, even though he's a little bit older, he was still winning 54% of the faceoffs.
Right.
And they also did sign our old friend Jerome McGinley.
McGinley's coming back
for some more veteran experience.
Yep.
I mean, and who knows? I know he's getting older, but you know what? I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he puts in between 20 and 30 goals again. One thing for the Avalanche, again, kind of like Philadelphia, except maybe not as bad. They're still lacking that shutdown defense,
right?
And they didn't do much to improve it. In fact, actually, they signed Bruins' old cast-off, Brad Stewart, who's kind of a little past his prime. They've got Tyson Barrie. He's very good as far as his offensive production goes, but he's a liability on defense. And I guess they're going to be counting on Eric Johnson and Hedger. They're going to be the number one pairing of the team, which actually, if they were on some other team, they'd be either the second or the third pairing.
Absolutely.
So, but it's going to be an afternoon game at 1:00 at the TD for a little Columbus Day special.
Yes, it'll be a good game. It's nice to see the Western Conference in town. So, and the Avalanche being Bork's Cup team.
Right.
There's a little connection there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, we already kind of covered Detroit, so let's see. Here comes our favorite team, those pesky Canadians.
Yes. And, the last time we saw them play, the Bruins, they lost the second round of the playoffs in 7 games. Since then, they traded Daniel Briere for P.A. Parento.
Right.
And they also traded away Josh Georges. And they also allowed their captain, Brian Giunta, to walk away. And also that had to do a lot with the salary cap. They just couldn't afford some of these guys. So they picked up some vets. They picked up Manny Malhotra and Tom Gilbert to help out on the D. That's always been a strong point with, of course, P.K. Subban, who's, was the Bruins killer, especially in the playoffs last year, I will say, albeit his diving. He did kind of, even though Giunta was the team captain, he really took over that series.
Right.
He played a terrific series, but and then of course they've got their goalie Carey Price, who was been a lot more consistent the last couple of years, but what their big problem is not so much on the defense, but they really lack top-notch forward. They have Alex Galchenyuk, and he's getting close. Thomas Plekanec and Chara's buddy Max Pacioretty, they're decent, but that's about it. Last year their offense ranked 21st and their power play 19th. It's funny, just a quick story on Max Pacioretty. Actually, me, my wife, and my son were actually at that game in Montreal when Chara hit him into that stanchion, right? And, I'll tell you what, when that happened, that place went berserk.
Oh.
And I'll tell you what, we had fans in back of us from Montreal who were there with their Molson Golden Ale cans. And I'll tell you what, if they hadn't have thrown Chara out, I believe with us wearing our Bruin shirts, I think that we would have been wearing some cans.
Yes,
that was quite the time. That's for sure.
I don't want to get too big into it right now, but that whole scenario really, ever since then, I've lost a lot of respect for the Montreal fans.
Yeah, especially too when they called up the police and they were looking into filing charges against Chara.
Yeah, that's of all places. I could see Nashville doing that. No offense, Nashville fans, but.
Yeah, we love Carrie Underwood and Fisher, too. Mike Fisher,
actually, I can't see anybody doing it. I don't, But, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, of all places, the last place I would expect that to happen would be Montreal.
Yeah.
You invented hockey. What are you doing?
Yeah. Right.
But I don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy. Even Don Cherry went cuckoo over that, my man.
Right, exactly.
But they've got, they're going to have it's going to be one of those payback games, but it's in Montreal, so it ought to be interesting.
Yeah, that's for sure. Hey,
I'd like to. Oh, go ahead.
Just one other note. I just noted this. Okay, now the Bruins are playing Washington Saturday, and then they're playing the Canadiens on Thursday. Now, last night actually, the Habs and the Caps they had a game, and the Canadiens beat the Habs 2-1 in a shootout. Okay,
right.
But get this. Now this year, you don't have to give the referees a list of the shooters to use, okay?
New rule.
I mean, get this, okay? You know, we were talking about that Barry Trotz and Ovechkin, you know, getting along, or, you know, Trotz trying to set something for Ovechkin. He didn't use Ovechkin until the 4th round.
Wow.
How about that? You know, you would have thought that, you know, Ovechkin would be like, you know, the first guy out of the chute or in the top 2 or 3 anyways.
Well, I think the fans are getting the 5th coach under Ovechkin. I think the fans are getting a little tired of the coaches taking a walk and Ovechkin getting his way.
Right. Yeah, and that's like I said. I mean, you know, Ovechkin always says he wants to win the Stanley Cup, but at the same time, it's like, well, you know, he doesn't seem like he wants to be that team player.
Right. Does he want to win it, or does he want the team to win it?
Right, exactly. He just wants to do what he wants to do, and then the rest of the team should just pick up the slack for all the defense. We're not saying that, you know, he's going to turn out to be like, you know, another Patrice Bergeron, but at the same time, it's like you got to come back a little bit.
Right.
You know, I mean, you got to help out, you know. Hey, just very quickly, you know, getting back, I forgot about that Colorado. We've actually got a Colorado connection now because Joe Sakic, their former coach before Patrick Roy, is now our Bruins assistant
coach, right?
And he's actually taking over in the Bruins power play unit,
right?
And running that. So,
yeah, the other coach left. I forget his name.
Right. Yeah. Was it Ward that left?
Ward. Yes, Ward left. Thanks.
Yeah. So
let's take a quick look at a Bruin highlight from last playoffs. I think Montreal's on a power play here, and I hope we don't see a copy of that. Okay, here we go with the Subban goal. Right there, slow motion. Chara's standing there doing nothing. Bang, trying to play goalie but screening Rask. Now you got Briere on Rask's lap. Chara should have been knocking Briere into the second row of the balcony. Miller's standing there doing nothing. He should never be behind the defense. That was horrible. Unacceptable. Hello, everybody. And we're back. Well, I'm back because G-Hikes had to head to Buffalo for the Patriots-Buffalo game. We had technical difficulties at the end of that last highlight, but G-Hikes agreed that Chara did screen Rask and that the Canadians were in the Bruins' head and all that stuff. That was last year. Let's hope this year it goes better, and we're going to keep bringing you the highlights throughout the year. So with that being said, thanks for joining us for another episode of Bees Buzz. We'll see you next week. Go Bruins.